Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel, Coffee Break Chatters. I wasn't expecting to be making another Prince Harry and Meghan Markle video this soon, but then Buckingham Palace confirmed that King Charles and Queen Camilla met privately with Prince Harry, Meghan Markle, and the kids at Highgrove, and this was last Friday. Well, Friday here in the US. And that alone was enough to make headlines around the world for the last couple of days over the weekend and today, Monday, July 13. But what really caught my attention wasn't what the palace said, it wasn't what they did not say. Because they confirmed the meeting happened and they said it was private, no media, no public photographs, except I think for one royal photographer who was there, and that the couple of pictures or several pictures that they took apparently belong to the palace and it's not for public consumption. Okay, so there are no other details about the conversation. And then silence, my friends. And that's very different from what we are used to these days, isn't it? Right? Usually, when Harry and Meghan Markle are involved, every little detail eventually finds its way into the headlines, whether it's through interviews or unnamed sources speaking to the press. This time, though, nothing as of yet. Okay? And I have to admit, that is making me so curious. Okay, because that's when everybody else starts talking. But I was following all these royal commentators, and I'm very curious about what Neil Sean said, I think, on one of his videos. And I love Neil Sean. I follow him. He's one of my favorite royal commentators. And again, before we go any further, take this with a grain of salt, right? And these are allegedly, I know he's got really good royal sources, but of course, if it didn't really come from the palace, we cannot say and 100% confirm it. Okay, but usually Neil Sean's sources are pretty accurate, but it's still allegedly. Okay, so throughout this video, I'm going to separate what's been confirmed by the palace from what's being reported by royal commentaries. Okay, and some of the details we will discuss come from palace sources, but haven't been confirmed by the royal household. So I'm sharing them as they are shared online, but not as established fact. Okay, with that said, again, allegedly, okay, um, according to palace sources, the meeting may not have happened the way many headlines are making it sound. So, some of the news media are framing this as if King Charles or maybe royal family invited Harry and Meghan Markle over because, maybe they are extending an olive branch. I don't know, but that's always been the case, and that's always been what's being dispersed by media, and lots of media outlets out there, and lots of royal commentators as well. But according to Neil Sean, again allegedly, the story may have started a little bit differently. Okay, and so that allegedly, after Harry lost his latest court battle against the publisher of the Daily Mail, Meghan reportedly, allegedly, reached out to the palace to let them know that Harry is not in a very good place. Okay? I don't know what that means. Is it emotionally? Is it mentally? Or is it financially? We don't know, right? Now, if that's true, though, I think it changes the whole entire conversation. Because then, this wasn't really King Charles deciding to bring everyone together. I'm sure he does. I'm sure he feels that way. He's a dad, right? Before anything else, before he's a king, he is a dad first. Okay? It may have been Palace responding after learning Harry is having a difficult time. And honestly, those are two completely different stories. One makes it sound like Charles was chasing reconciliation, and the other one makes it sound like a dad, a father, hearing his son or heard his son was struggling and decided to see him. Okay, so whether you are Team William, Team Harry, or somewhere in the middle, I think most parents can understand that you can love your child without agreeing with the choices they've made. Okay, and I get that. I've been there, and I am there actually right now. But here's another reason I think the timing has people talking. Because for months and months, entertainment writers and news outlets and royal commentators have been asking whether Harry and Meghan's commercial projects in the US are still, or outside the UK, are still carrying the same excitement they once did. Okay, in particular, right, Megan's lifestyle brand, as ever, has faced plenty of negative commentaries. And some critics say it hasn't delivered the momentum many expected. Okay, a lot of people say that the Sussexes have lost a lot of the public goodwill they enjoyed when they first stepped away from royal duties. Of course, right? There are also supporters who disagree with that assessment. But regardless of where you stand, there is one thing that's impossible to ignore. Okay, the moment that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are connected to the royal family, the world's attention comes rushing back. Okay, one private meeting with the king generated more headlines than months of business announcements and endless email from us ever, Meghan Markle. And maybe that's exactly why this meeting mattered so much, at least for Meghan Markle, right? But if Harry thought it was going to be a meeting on his terms, oh well, the palace had other ideas. Okay, and the very first person to make that one clear was Queen Camilla. Okay, so according to sources, okay, Harry allegedly wanted to meet with his father without Queen Camilla being there. Okay, and I actually paused for a second when I heard that because really, I mean, after everything that's happened over the past last few years, think about it. Whether you like Camilla or not isn't really the point. She is the queen, right? More importantly, she is King Charles' wife. So you cannot separate those two things anymore. And let's not forget what Harry didn't exactly hold back in spare. He accused Camilla of leaking stories to improve her own image. He questioned her motives, right? He painted a picture of someone he simply didn't trust. Now imagine saying, I'd like to meet Dad, but can Camilla not be there? Or something like that, right? I just don't see how that conversation was ever going to end well, my friends. And it did not. If we're looking at what's being reported right now, it just did not. The palace contacts say Charles made it clear that Camilla was there. Okay? And I wasn't surprised. Because over the past couple of years, we've heard over and over again that Camilla has become one of King Charles' biggest sources of strength. Okay, especially during his cancer treatment. People close to the palace have often described her as the person who keeps him grounded. Okay, she's been uh, by his side through public criticism, through these current health challenges he's going through, and through these enormous responsibilities of becoming a queen. So, why would Charles ask for her to step aside now? Right? I don't think he would. In fact, I think doing the opposite sent a message, a quiet message. Okay? One that didn't require a press release. It just simply said, she is my wife. She is the queen. Okay, now here's something else reported that I found fascinating. According to sources, Harry wasn't the one setting the conditions for this meeting. It's the palace. Okay, and if it's true, that tells me that King Charles wasn't walking into this conversation hoping to negotiate. Okay, I feel like he was setting boundaries because let's be honest, the palace has been burned so many times, right? Private conversations have ended up in interviews, and phone calls have found their way into memoirs, right? Disagreements have become documentaries. Whether that's fair or unfair, that's the reality from the palace's point of view. So, if King Charles was going to have this meeting, I think it's understandable that he wanted to make sure it stayed private. And I respect that. And that brings me to another detail, okay, that's being reported. When Harry and Meghan arrived, allegedly, okay, they were not immediately ushered into the family gathering where everyone, hugged and smiled, right? Instead, they had to actually go through a process, okay? And it seems like the palace remained in control from the beginning, okay? Now, again, the palace hasn't confirmed any of these details, but it seems like Meghan and the children were initially asked to wait, while Harry met with his father and the Queen first. Okay? And if that is accurate, it actually makes more sense, right? Because before this became a meeting between grandparents and grandchildren, or between Charles and Meghan, it was first a meeting between a father and his son. Okay, that relationship has carried years of hurt, of, I would say, public criticism and disappointment. If there was ever going to be a meaningful conversation, it truly probably needs to start there. Just the two of them, plus Camilla, of course, or or three, like I said. Either way, it certainly doesn't seem like or sound like a casual family reunion. Some of the headlines were suggesting. For me, it seems a little bit more structured and carefully managed, almost as though every step had been thought through ahead of time. This wasn't just a family visit. The palace treated it like an operation. Now, I'm not saying that in a dramatic way. Okay, I'm saying it because of all the precautions that were reportedly taken. And then one of the things too that I heard is that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle were also asked to hand over their phones. That says a lot. Okay. Buckingham Palace has never confirmed that happened, but if it did again, I can actually understand why. Think about everything that has happened over the past years, right? All the private conversations that now being consumed by the public. Okay, and again, whether you believe Harry and Meghan were justified or not, from the palace's perspective, trust has clearly been damaged. And once trust is broken, we know it's incredibly hard to get that one back. So if Charles wanted one conversation that stayed inside those four walls, asking everyone to leave their phones behind doesn't seem all that unreasonable. Okay. In fact, if I were advising the palace, I probably would have done the same thing, right? Because this wasn't just about protecting the king, it's about protecting everyone in that room. So that no accidental recordings, no text messages being sent during the meeting, no photographs, no possibility that a private family moment suddenly becomes tomorrow's headlines. And the palace wanted complete control over what happened inside Highgrove. And apparently they got it. Okay, so while everyone was focused on who was inside Highgrove during that meeting, I couldn't help thinking about the people who were not. Prince William and Princess Catherine. On the very same day this family meeting was taking place, William and Catherine were out being seen attending a polo match. Okay. Now, does that automatically mean they were avoiding Harry? Probably yes or no, right? We don't know that. I'm not going to pretend I know what was going on behind palace walls, okay? But I do think their absence tells us something. And we know this, right? Or we kind of know this because it if this had been a full-scale family reunion, wouldn't you expect Prince William to be there? Right? After all, This isn't just Charles' son, Harry, right? It's also William's only brother. Instead, William carried on with his scheduled engagement, and Catherine was just right there beside him, as always. Business as usual. And honestly, I think that says a lot. Not because William doesn't love his brother, none of us can really know what he feels, but because William has always seemed to approach this situation differently from his father. Okay, King Charles is wearing two hats. He is the king, but he is also Harry's dad. So that no matter how hurt he may be, I think a part of him will always hope that one day things can be repaired. I believe William's position is a little different. He is Harry's brother. Yes, that's correct. But he is also the future king. And over the last several years, he's had to watch not only his father, but also his wife, his family, and the institution he'll one day lead be criticized on world stage. And that's a lot to carry, right? Especially when some of those criticisms came from someone you grew up with. So I wasn't surprised that Prince William wasn't part of this meeting. If anything, I think the palace may have wanted to keep the focus exactly where it belonged, only on Charles and Harry. Adding William into the room could have changed the entire environment, entire atmosphere, right? Instead of a father trying to reconnect with his son, it might have become something much more confrontational. Who knows, right? And maybe that wasn't the goal. Now, I know some people are going to say, but, shouldn't William have been there? Maybe. Okay, that's fair opinion, but I actually see it differently. And I think a lot of us sees it differently. Sometimes the smartest thing you can do is not force a conversation before everyone is ready. Okay, because if William still has unresolved hurt, and honestly, who could blame him, right? When putting him in that room before trust has even begun to rebuild probably wouldn't help anyone. And one thing I have noticed after the years is this: William doesn't seem interested in making grand public gestures. He doesn't give interviews about family matters. He doesn't respond every time Harry says something. He just, simply keeps working. And that's exactly what he appeared to be doing here. While the headlines were all about Harry, William and Catherine were carrying on their royal duties, attending the polo event and supporting the causes and charities they are committed to. So, no statements, no drama, just getting on with the job. Whether you agree with this approach or not, it's been remarkably consistent. And maybe that's one of the biggest differences between the two brothers today. One seems to believe that private matters should stay private, and the other one has been far more willing to tell his side of the story publicly. Okay? Now, speaking of privacy, there is one final detail on the reports that, and videos that I watched that really made me think. Because if, palace contacts are right or sources are right, the most valuable thing that came out from this meeting, okay, wasn't a photograph, it wasn't a headline, it wasn't even a reconciliation. It was something that the royal family hasn't had in a very long time: a private conversation. And that, so far, right, so far, that actually stayed private. Now, there is another question people have been asking. Did this meeting help Harry and Meghan in a way? Maybe, right? Just being seen as reconnecting with the king changes the conversation, because instead of another week of headlines about losing court cases or failing business ventures, now suddenly everyone was talking about this family reunion. Okay, so from a public relations standpoint, that is good, right? At the same time, though, I don't think the palace gave away very much. Charles saw his son, he saw his grandchildren, and nothing beyond that. In other words, Harry and Meghan got the meeting, but Buckingham Palace controlled the story. So while a lot of people are celebrating this as a beginning of a reconciliation, I am actually a little bit more cautious. I think this was the first step, but the real question is that what happens after everyone goes home, right? Does Harry continue trying to rebuild those relationships quietly? Or do we eventually hear about this meeting in another interview? Because I think that's what Buckingham Palace is watching. Not what Harry says today, but what he does tomorrow. And if there's one person who's probably paying especially close attention, it's not King Charles, it's Prince William. And I say that because, in my opinion, Harry isn't just trying to repair his relationship with his father. Okay, I think he is racing against time. The more I watch everything that's happened over the last few years, the more I think that Harry understands that King Charles and King William are likely to approach this situation differently. Okay? Charles is still Harry's father. No matter how disappointed he may be, I believe there's always going to be that father's heart, right? A father who still wants to see his son, who wants to know his grandchildren, probably still hopes deep down that somehow this family can find some peace, right? But William is different. He is Harry's brother, but he is again also the future king. And the future kings don't just think about their family, okay? They think about protecting the institution. I honestly believe that's where William's focus has always been. If you look back over the last several years, William has barely said anything publicly. He hasn't gone from interview to interview defending himself. He hasn't written a book, right? He hasn't responded every time Harry has made another accusation. He stayed remarkably quiet. Okay, I see that as discipline because sometimes the strongest response is no response at all. And I also think William hasn't forgotten. How could he? He watched his wife become the subject of criticism. He watched his father endure public family disputes while dealing with serious health issues. He watched private family matters become global headlines. Whether Harry intended that or not, those things happened. And I don't think William simply wipes the slate clean because of one meeting at Highgrove. Now, here's where I lose some people here, okay? But this is honestly what I think, and in my opinion. I believe Harry knows that if he ever wants any kind of lasting relationship with the royal family, the best opportunity is while King Charles is still on the throne. Because once William becomes king, the whole dynamic changes completely. And I could be wrong, right? Absolutely. None of us knows what William will do when that day comes. But based on everything we've seen over the years, I don't think William will tolerate endless public attacks against the monarchy while continuing to extend the same level of patience. And before someone says, well, William can't do anything, I wouldn't be so sure, right? Look at Prince Andrew. Now, I want to be very careful because these are very different situations. I'm not comparing what Andrew was accused of with Harry's situation. They are, of course, completely different. But Andrew's story does show us something very important, that the monarchy can make significant decisions when it believes the institution comes first. Andrew lost his military appointments, he lost his royal patronages, he stepped away from public royal duties. The institution protected itself. So, yes, right? Major changes are possible when a monarch believes they are necessary. Does that mean Harry and Meghan will lose their Duke and Duchess Sussex titles? We don't know, right? There is no evidence that's about to happen. And William has never really publicly said he intends to do that. But I still do think it's fair to say that a future King William could take a firmer approach to how Prince Harry and Meghan Markle fit or do not fit within the monarchy. And maybe, again, just maybe, Harry realizes that too. Maybe that's one reason this meeting happened now because opportunities don't stay open forever. Windows close, kings change, priorities change, right? And once William becomes king, the conversation may be very different from the one Harry had with his father. That's why I don't see this meeting as the end of the story. I actually think it's the beginning of a countdown. The question is what Harry does with the time he has left. All right, everyone, that's all that I have for you on this topic. Thank you so much for joining me for another daily coffee break chatters. I really appreciate you taking a few minutes of your day to sit down with me and chat about the latest royal news. And if you enjoyed today's conversation, I'd really appreciate if you'd give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps support what I'm doing here. And before you go, tell me what you think. Do you believe this meeting was the beginning of a reconciliation, or do you think it's still too early to tell? Okay, thank you again for watching, and I hope to see you back here for our daily coffee break chatters. And until then, stay safe and take care. God bless. Bye.